There it is.
There it is.
Oh, I see.
So I was just saying that the mayor and I were at Maple School, and Judy Averill, the principal, was there when the team came to do the site visit for our priority project, which was Maple. But at that time, we talked with them and asked them if they would consider consolidating all of our elementary schools, because all of our elementary schools are in need of updates for a new concept. And we also talked with them about considering a consolidation of elementary and middle schools, a K to 8. And I did get them to agree to come to White Brook just to have a quick look at it from the outside, and we showed them that the site there had a lot of acreage and might be a possibility. So they were willing to. They said that it wasn't really us. Or them rather, that would make the decision, but what we would put forward, they ultimately make the final decision. But they were open to considering all of those different scenarios.
Now, when you say final decision, Nancy, you're saying on the 3 options that are before them.
That's right. Well, we'll put forward, what it is that we would like, and they'll give us guidance along the way, but then they make the final decision for what they'll fund. So at that point, we received in March of 2015 word that they had, that the vote of the board for the MSBA was to authorize Easthampton into the eligibility period, formally into the eligibility period. That happened last March. And we were there for that vote. That was very exciting. So once we were authorized into that module, there was a lot of documentation that we were required to submit. We had to do an initial compliance certification, appointment of a school building committee, hence we're here tonight, an educational profile, an online enrollment projection, maintenance and capital planning information, and local vote authorization for the feasibility study. So they took all of that into consideration. And on September 30th, they voted to partner with us for a feasibility study. And so we were excited to have been brought into the next step. So part of the feasibility study, of course, is to obtain an owner's project manager. So we are now in the owner project manager phase of the feasibility study. And that's what we're doing here tonight. So there are several pieces to that process, and once we get through that, the next process would be the designer selection process. So for the owner project manager process, we have to do an advertisement, and we have to do a request for services that has to be approved by this committee. And so that's what we're here tonight to do. And we also have to approve one more member of the selection process committee for the owner's project manager. Any questions on any of that?
So that process, the OPM, still is looking at all 3 options.
Yes.
The feasibility study is still looking at all 3.
They will make the final decision.
After-
We're not there yet.
After they've done all
Where
that.
we are right now, the reason for this meeting is it's required that the building committee reviews the RFS.
Yeah.
Now, the RFS it started, it's obviously a requirement of the MSBA. It started actually with a type of template from them, but it takes in the specific information that Melissa and Dale have spent a lot of time working on, and Nancy and I reviewing it as to meet all the criteria. A draft is provided to them, and then they approve that, and then it'll be published, and then after that is published. So the reason for this meeting here tonight is right where we're at now.
And
One of
maybe
the reasons.
we could ask Dale. Dale and Melissa did a lot of work
Yes.
on this RFS, and maybe Dale, you'd like to start and just talk a little bit about that process, and then Melissa as well.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask on that.
As the mayor mentioned, it stems from a template that's pretty prescriptive. And Melissa put the first draft of it together and then sent it to me to add specific information about the project and the schools. And all of that was basically gleaned from the statement of interest that was submitted for the earlier phase. So the process will be to advertise from this document, with which we had limited leeway, I guess you would say. And from that advertisement, there'll be candidates that come forward and a selection process to name somebody who will sort of shepherd the process forward on behalf of this committee, at least through the feasibility phase, but then the option exists to continue using that person should it go forward to bidding and then constructing a building. You can have the continuity of the same person follow it.
And it's required, and that's what you often hear as the OPM. That's a requirement to have that person in place.
And one question, I'm just curious in terms of the tone and the way it was written. It seems very much sort of going back to what Nancy was, that it's really based on Maple School, even though then very quickly it reiterates that there's actually a couple different plans we'd rather potentially go with, right? And that's how they required it to be said.
Yes, exactly. We've asked them that multiple times because we wanted to be sure that they didn't forget that we had other models in mind. And they said, no, absolutely, you just have to do it for your priority project. But there is a little language in there, I think, that talks about the others as well.
Because one of the things we have to look at is just Maple School. As part of, like, there's 3 options, and we're just trying to get this one option that is kind of pre-approved to be expanded into, like, what's the 3 options and what's the best option for Easthampton, given, you know, the information we find out about all 3 of those scenarios.
Are there certain people that do this? I mean, that do this particular job?
The OPM?
MSBA?
Yes, I mean, I assume this is kind of a special, no, the person that.
Owner's project manager.
Yes.
I mean, these are specialized people that do this.
There's people that are on their list of certified people, yes. It's not just any.
Right, anybody.
Exactly.
Can I ask who we had, who did we have for the high school? I can't, was it,
Strategic buildings.
SBS.
SBS? Okay.
Right.
And they have changed since we had them. I think they've been taken over by a bigger company, am I correct?
Yeah, they were about out.
Right towards the end of our project.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just curious. Thank you.
John, did you have?
Oh, it was basically right in line with what we were
But, and I can tell you that, as I started to say, the owner's project manager, the OPM is a requirement. Before, when we started the high school, it was asked, do we have to have one? The answer is absolutely. We can't be that ourselves.
Right.
Nor would we.
No, they want to.
And they're going to guide us, they're going to basically be a consultant that will guide us through this process as it goes along.
Well, yes, but they're also, in essence, the clerk of the works for the state. I mean, they're not our clerk of the works. They're working on the state's behalf, even though they're very helpful to us.
Okay.
They were extremely helpful to us during the high school building project. They just know everything about building, and they really kind of watch out for us and make sure that our best interests are always being considered.
Along with our,
Exactly.
depending on what the issue is at the time.
So this is the phase we're at now.
So just, again, for clarification, based on all those protocols that we're going to go through that are required with MSBA, where in that process do they make the decision on which option? Do we know?
I believe that's part of the owner's project manager comes into play on that also.
I think the designer would have to
Yeah.
lay them out first.
Yeah, I think once we get the designer, then they will do studies on the projects that we're considering. And then we'll put those forth, this is my understanding, we'll put those forth to the School Building Authority Board. And then they will take under consideration the projects and approve the one that they think, we'll certainly recommend one. And then they'll have to give us their final approval.
And just so you know, on the MSBA side, it's extremely organized. They have somebody that's just on this project with us. They are past helpful when you go to any of these. They really want the cities and towns to succeed, so they work with you on every stage. If you have absolutely any questions, they are really on top of it.
Good.
Additional copies of the
I don't. If you don't, you're welcome to use more.
You can have one.
If you
Actually,
don't-
yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's just an email, I can print them off.
Oh, did you email it?
Yes, we
Yeah.
emailed them out
Yeah.
last week to everybody. So, because this was the only thing that you had to review, so we wanted to make sure we gave these to you ahead of time. We emailed them out to everybody last Wednesday. What?
It's tough to read.
Yeah.
I'm reading it out of
Oh, yeah.
Here, try looking through these.
I
read
Does
the-
anyone else need one? Because you're more than
Yeah,
welcome to
no,
have one.
exactly.
So
I'll
Karen,
make you a copy after, Mary.
so what is it we're actually approving, this document or the process or
The RFS.
this
Yeah.
document?
This is going
release
to
of
be,
the RFS.
what?
The release. of
Right,
the
that
RFS.
we will give this RFS to MSBA, and it's as a draft, and then they make sure there's no problems with it. They approve it. So it's for their approval. So you're to review it, give us the go-ahead to,
And it seems like you guys have done multiple drafts. I mean, it seems very
Yeah.
clean already. So it's not like
As I said
you're looking for us to
before-
do some
right,
wordsmithing or anything.
and that was the part we were going over with Dale and Melissa. You know, it starts with a template, but it's very specific to, you know, Easthampton, and the things that were pulled into it would have been out of the statements of interest, which would have been prepared by Nancy at the very beginning of the project. So they're looking for specific information. It's not just pulling this out of, something that we think we would put together. No.
And then just, going ahead, the selection committee, there's a format for the selection committee, and then they actually are the ones that interview the candidates and go through that whole process and recommend a candidate to the board.
And now that selection committee is members of this board, or do we?
One member of this board. It would be Melissa as finance director, Dale as business director, Nancy as superintendent, me as mayor, and one member of this board. That's our next step.
Yeah, that's laid out on page 5, right in sort of the middle of the page.
So do you need a motion to accept this?
I was gonna
Yes.
say, I think
Document?
that's our
Yes,
first order of
please.
business,
So
probably.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the document as it is.
Second.
You what?
I said, you want to take over, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Any further discussion about the
RFS.
RFS? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
And now we need a member from this committee to serve on the designer, the OPM selection committee. So that's Karen, Nancy, Dale, Melissa, and Dave. I'm sorry, Anna. Is there someone that would like to, and just a real brief description of what the responsibilities of that group are?
Dale, do you want to talk about that? Because we were talking about that earlier today.
If you look on page 6, it lays out the timeline, fairly compressed timeline. And it would involve reviewing the written material that each of the interested candidates submits, then participating in an interview, and then reviewing ranking people after the interview, and then receiving information about the reference checks and factoring that into a final ranking. So it's probably 2 or 3 meetings, I would imagine. And some independent work to review written material at home about the interested candidates. And then working collaboratively to rank them and put forward a recommended candidate.
And then once the OPM is selected, I assume that's the end of the work for that committee?
I believe this committee does the design, works on the same way on the designer did.
I think that has more members. Fewer members, I'm not sure about that.
Right, because the MSBA has a bigger saying.
Yes.
Right, it has the majority of the vote.
I think they prescribe actually who needs to be on that
Right.
selection committee for the design.
I just wanted to suggest that maybe it should be someone who was on the other school building committee for the high school, just because that person has the frame of reference of how that project went and what was strong and good about the relationship with Strategic Business Solutions, has that frame of reference or experience. I think it might be valuable to have that perspective added to the selection group. I just throw that out there for consideration.
Because the three of us work with them.
Right, right. That was before Dale's time.
Yeah.
So we all had worked with the OPM, part of that interview process.
I was just thinking from the school building committee perspective.
Right.
I know you all do a lot of
Right.
very close
So that would
detail
be,
work.
well, you were on Deb and
David,
David
Tom.
and Tom.
Yeah, I guess that's not a bad idea, but so much is, I mean, Dale's brand new to the process probably, unless you've done it in a past life.
I have done it in past life.
She's a veteran.
And strategic is gone, so they're going to have a different look if they're going to be a bidder. I guess my only cautionary note would be I wouldn't necessarily want to limit it just to the three of us if there's another member that has a burning desire to serve on this committee.
And, okay, so,
It just would require some flexibility.
right, in
You
your
know,
schedule.
during the day.
And these would happen during the day. This would happen during the
That's all.
workday.
Right, that's a bigger issue for folks to be comfortable with. It looks like, I know Dale said 2 or 3 meetings, but informational meeting, yeah, there's probably 3 meetings here. The rest of it is sort of deadlines for certain things, so 3 meetings during the day. Yeah.
I think Dave's the perfect guy for it.
You're gonna be close to this process, so you might as well jump in now.
You've got the experience.
He's just checking the sprinkler system, that's all.
I don't mind doing it.
David?
I think Dave's the right guy.
Okay, so is somebody making a motion? A nomination?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Never mind,
Thanks,
I don't want to
Ryan.
be usurping your duties.
No, you're fine, you're fine. John's second, we have a second. Motion second, made and seconded for David Boyle to be appointed to the Bonus Project Manager Selection Committee. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, thank you. Obviously, good. Good.
Want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Well, sure, yeah, I just wanted to make a point of, not that we have a date, Karen, but clearly I'm hoping that these meetings can be, on point, on task, quick in and out. I know how much everybody's time is pulled in a lot of different directions, so when Karen or Nancy or Dale or Melissa are putting together an agenda for us, we're going to rip through that and hopefully be in and out of here. And I'm hoping meetings, I go back even to high school building committee meetings, maybe an hour tops, and we're in and out of there. And then understanding what our role and our task is. I mean, a lot of this is preset. I used to joke that when I served on the school committee, 95% of what we did was out of our control and only 5% was. That's why it took us 3 weeks to approve a school calendar and 5 minutes to approve a $16 million budget, because we had very little control over the budget. So a lot of this is preset by a lot of the regulations with MSBA and the state. So I've seen our role, if I go back to when I served on the public safety complex and the high school, our role is basically to make the case in the community and get the community behind this, because it really will take a village then when the rubber hits the road. So But if I can get philosophical for a moment here, I've been harping on this whole selection process of the options for a reason. You know, we've got a brand-new high school, thank God, for a reason. It's because we were going to be forced down a path with MSBA that we didn't want to be forced down. And I'm a fan of K through 8, believe me. One building, beautiful new state-of-the-art. I'm not sure philosophically what happens if the option chosen is a new Maple Street school. And for me personally, that's a much harder case to sell to the community when they know we have 3 more buildings behind it. I hope MSBA is wise enough to see that, you know, penny wise, pound foolish. It might be a cheaper project, but in the long run, it won't be. And if we can do one building, it's best for us and best for them.
They're very wise.
Good.
Well, I will say that when we went in front of them the first time and we talked about it, you know, we said Maples was a priority and the reason we had chosen Maples a priority, but that we were really wanting to consider a K-8. The chair of the board said that she had either had a K-8 in her community or
Was that that was the state treasurer?
Right.
Yes, she was thrilled.
She was very excited about the fact that we were considering a K-8. So we're feeling that, you know, there's some momentum behind that.
Good.
And when we talked with the MSBA liaisons that we have, they told us that they would get us in touch with schools where there were K-8 schools and people who would be willing to come out for parent forums, because we know it's going to be controversial, you know, in the community among, you know, some of our community members. Part of that, I think, is education. I think we all want to know what that would look like, putting kindergarten children and 8th grade children in the same building. However, the charter school in our community is a K-8, so you know, there are other models very nearby where we can.
Yeah, and without belaboring it, I mean, my children all went through a K through 8 parochial school, and there's so many programs, educational and mentoring and leadership, and that you can do with kindergarten and 8th grade combined. And there's just so many advantages you can bring to curriculum with mixing those kids together and having them sort of mentor each other. And it just, it's a great. It's not a new model. I mean, we all grew up with that, let's face it. We all grew up with it. Even Karen and I survived a K-8 school. So, good.
I think there are many advantages to a K-8.
And I think that at the very beginning of this process, you know, at the very, very beginning, before we were accepted into anything, that was always put out there as an option. And, you know, and I thank Nancy for constantly bringing that up, you know, so that we would not be limited. So we would have all the options available to us. So before we were even invited into anything, that message was put out there.
Well, the day we cut the ribbon on the new high school, we took her for a walk and explained to her what we were looking for next, and she seemed, you know, the one school was the right way to go. So.
And I think we all should start saying, myself included, pre-K.
Thank you. I was going to say that. The pre-K is a big part of this, and we're hoping to expand our pre-K. You know, yeah, it is. So thank you for saying that.
Okay, with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
One question of
If
the next
nobody
meeting.
seconds it, we don't go home.
Should we determine the next meeting now or do that later?
One of the things about the meeting that we did pull is the 5:30 is a really good time and the Monday is a good time. So I thank everybody for getting together at this short notice, because this was a requirement that these be reviewed, and our deadlines are tight. So for everybody to come together, you know, this is a busy time, we know, for everyone. So I really appreciate the fact that you all pulled together and were able to come on such, you know, such notice. So I think what we'll do is we won't, we will send an email out the next time when, or whatever we need to meet the next time for what our next step is or our next deadline. And as soon as we know it, but again, I think the majority, the meetings will be Mondays at 5:30, and this works perfect.
If we follow the protocol similar to what we did for the high school, we didn't set something up where we said we'll meet the first Monday of every month. We met on demand.
Right.
Basically, when there was an issue facing the city or the school department that there needed to be a decision, we'd set up a meeting. So the meetings could be on short notice, but it's not going to be like the first Monday of every month.
Right.
It's going to be on demand.
Exactly,
And-
that
and
way we
basically-
won't, you know, inconvenience everybody for a meeting when we don't need one.
So we'll take the lead from
And we will
Karen
give you
or
as
Nancy
much
when we
notice
do
as
it.
possible.
Okay, we're looking for a second on the motion to
Second.
adjourn. All in favor? Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, David.
So you get to see me again Wednesday
I know
night?
David will read that stuff with like a, he's gonna be reading.
Where's the over the cold? Hey, who's the old guy that was down the edge who can't see?
I don't know, his glasses must be
His watch must not work either.
5:30.